It was October 1st, and the crisp autumn air carried the comforting scent of fallen leaves. Fall had always been my favorite season, and this year was special. Carter and I were celebrating our first autumn together in our new home. To surprise him, I decided to decorate the house with all things fall and Halloween. I went shopping and even browsed online for bargains. That's when I stumbled upon the listing. It was a Facebook Marketplace post, a green plastic container filled with fall decorations. The asking price? Only $20. The photo wasn't much to look at, just the container sitting on a plain carpet, but it promised everything from tableware to outdoor decor. The seller's profile was sparse, no personal posts, just a few odd items for sale: a new iPhone, women's clothes, and Christmas ornaments. The profile picture showed a man wearing a gray trucker hat pulled low, obscuring his face. His name was Cody. I messaged Cody about the decorations, and he replied almost instantly. He said he'd be home by 9 p.m. and sent me his address. The house, according to Google Street View, looked normal enough, though it was in a less than stellar neighborhood. Wanting to play it safe, I asked my friend Lily to come with me. The drive to Cody's house was uneventful but tense. The further we went, the sketchier the area became. Lily half joked about how we should have just gone to Target instead of chasing cheap decorations. I laughed it off, but her unease rubbed off on me. When we finally arrived, the house was dark, save for a dim light seeping through the blinds. I texted Cody, letting him know we were outside. Almost immediately, I saw the blinds shift slightly, as if someone were peeking out. Moments later, Cody messaged back, "Come right in." Lily gave me a look. "That's weird." "Right," she whispered. I agreed. We decided to ring the doorbell instead. Before we could, the door creaked open, revealing a man standing halfway in the doorway. He was tall and broad, but his face was shadowed by the dim porch light. Without a word, he waved us inside and disappeared into the house. "This is not worth $20, Lily muttered under her breath. Still, curiosity and stubbornness kept me moving forward. The air inside was heavy, the scent an overwhelming mix of mothballs and something sour. Cody's voice called out from a nearby room, low and gravelly, "It's in here." We hesitated, exchanging uneasy glances. "Maybe we should just go," Lily said, tugging on my arm. But I stepped forward, peeking into the dimly lit living room. The room was unsettling, like stepping into a time capsule of the 70s. The carpet was a faded pinkish red, and the furniture looked ancient. In the middle of the room was a red container with a green lid, nothing like the one in the ad. Cody stood next to it, his face finely visible. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes, they seemed too focused, too intense. "Go ahead, open it," he said, motioning to the container. Something about his tone sent a chill down my spine. "You can open it," I replied, trying to sound casual. He smirked, a cold, joyless expression. "You're no fun." The smell intensified as he removed the lid, an odor so foul it made my stomach turn. Lily grabbed my arm, whispering, "Let's go." Now I didn't need convincing. We'd bolted for the door without waiting to see what was inside. Cody didn't stop us, but as we reached the car, the front door slammed shut. My hands shook as I fumbled with the keys, and Lily kept urging me to hurry. As we sped away, I glanced back at the house. The blinds shifted again, as if someone was watching us leave. Later that night, I told Carter everything. He was skeptical but concerned. The next day, he decided to check out the house himself. Against my protests, he promised he wouldn't go inside. When Carter returned, he looked pale. "An old woman lives there," he said. "She said she's been there for decades, alone. No Cody, no Facebook account." I showed him the messages and the address to prove I wasn't imagining things. Determined to get answers, Carter looked up public records. The house did belong to an older woman, living alone. To this day, I can't explain what happened. Cody's profile disappeared shortly after. I've stopped using online marketplaces altogether, but sometimes late at night I can't help but wonder who or what was waiting for us in that house, and what was really in that container. Asheville's charm wasn't just its vibrant city life, it was the sheer abundance of hiking trails. By October, the trees were ablaze with color, and I decided to spend a day exploring. I set my sights on DuPont State Forest, a place I'd heard about but never visited. The promise of stunning waterfalls after a week of heavy rain made it an irresistible choice. I figured a midweek hike meant solitude, and I wasn't wrong when I arrived at the trailhead. The lot was nearly empty. The first leg of the trail was serene. The only sounds were the crunch of leaves underfoot and the distant rush of water. After about 45 minutes, I reached Triple Falls, a magnificent cascade that looked straight out of a postcard. I took some photos and videos, breathing in the crisp air as I perched on a rock. That's when I saw her. She stood on the edge of the trail, partially obscured by the trees, staring at me. An older woman, maybe in her mid-50s, with short, grayish blonde hair. I waved, trying to be polite. She didn't wave back, just turned and walked deeper into the woods. It was a little strange, but I shrugged it off. I continued up the trail to High Falls, the next landmark. The view was even more breathtaking here, and I lingered a while longer. But as I scrolled through my phone, I caught movement in my peripheral vision. Looking up, I saw her again. Same woman, same spot near the trail, staring. This time, I didn't wave. I pretended to be engrossed in my phone, but the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. When I glanced up again, she was gone. I shook it off and kept moving, eventually arriving at a covered bridge, another picturesque spot. I leaned against the railing, sipping water, when I noticed her again, standing at the far end of the bridge. Her expression was hard to read, but her gaze was unrelenting. Frustrated, I called out, "Excuse me, is everything okay?" Without a word, she turned and walked away. Her pace was unnervingly fast, especially for someone her age. For a moment, I considered following her, but something in my gut told me not to. On the way back down the trail, I stopped a young woman walking her dog to ask if she'd seen the older woman. She said no, but when I explained what had happened, she laughed nervously. "That's super weird," she said, her tone half amused, half concerned. By the time I reached my car, I was both relieved and unsettled. The drive home was uneventful, and that evening, I met up with a girl I'd been seeing. Over pumpkin beers, I told her about the strange woman. She laughed, but her reaction mirrored the hikers. A mix of amusement and unease. That night, I fell asleep quickly, exhausted from the day. I'm usually a deep sleeper, but something woke me in the middle of the night. Groggy, I blinked into the darkness and froze. At the foot of my bed stood the woman. The air left my lungs. My entire body locked in terror as I stared at her shadowy figure. She didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, watching. I screamed, scrambling backward against the headboard. My screams must have startled her because she turned and walked out of the room, her movement eerily calm. Heart pounding, I fumbled for the lamp and flicked it on. The room was empty. Knife in hand, I checked every corner of the apartment closets, under the bed, even behind the shower curtain. Nothing. I called my dad, desperate to talk to someone. After hearing the story, he chalked it up to a half-asleep hallucination, fueled by my encounter on the trail. His explanation made sense, but it didn't ease the lingering dread. 2 days later, I got a call from my mom. Her voice trembled as she told me that her estranged sister in Germany had passed away unexpectedly. I'd never met my aunt, but when my mom returned from the funeral, she brought a prayer card with her sister's photo. A sight of the photo hit me like a punch to the gut. It was her, the woman on the trail, the woman at the foot of my bed. When I showed my dad the photo and reminded him of the timeline, his face went pale. He tried to rationalize it. But the sequence of events was undeniable. I saw her before we even knew she'd passed. I don't know what to believe anymore. I was raised Catholic, but never deeply religious. This experience shook me to my core, forcing me to question everything. Was it a hallucination, a warning, or something beyond explanation? All I know is that I'll never forget that hike, that gaze, or the chilling realization that some things simply cannot be explained. Carlos and I have been best friends since we were 10, partners in countless dumb escapades. By the time we were 21, we were roommates in Brunswick, Georgia, a small coastal town that was as unremarkable as it was boring. We always found ways to entertain ourselves, though. And that October, with Halloween in full swing, we came up with an idea that was as reckless as it was tempting. There was a house on the outskirts of town that had been abandoned for years. It was a strange old structure, its architecture starkly different from the rest of the neighborhood. Growing up, it was the stuff of rumors and urban legends, the kind of place kids dared each other to approach but never entered. That night, Carlos and I decided to change that. After grabbing some fast food and a few beers, we parked a good distance away from the house to avoid suspicion. We stashed baseball bats in our backpacks, our idea of protection, and made our way down the unlit street. The houses were spaced far apart, their yards sprawling into shadows. The house loomed before us, its silhouette jagged and eerie against the night sky. The overgrown lawn was littered with weeds, patches of dirt breaking up what little grass remained. We crept around to the back, hoping to find a less conspicuous way in. To our surprise, the back door wasn't locked. In fact, none of the windows were boarded up, and the place seemed untouched by the usual signs of vandalism. Flashlights in hand, we stepped inside. The air was heavy with the smell of dust and mildew. The layout of the house was strange, large on the outside, but cramped and maze-like inside, as if the builder had crammed in as many tiny rooms as possible. Carlos wandered off into another part of the house, calling out, "Yo, there's still furniture in here." I poked around the first floor, stepping into a narrow corridor lined with doors. Most of the rooms were filled with old, decrepit furniture, beds, dressers, and closets that looked like they hadn't been touched in decades. It was all junk, though, nothing of interest. That's when I found the door to the basement. The stairwell was long and steep, every step groaning under my weight. About halfway down, I noticed a faint glow coming from below. I turned off my flashlight to confirm it. Yes, there was definitely a light. Common sense told me to turn around, but curiosity got the better of me. Quietly, I crept down the remaining steps, my heart pounding in my chest. At the bottom, I peered around the wall separating the stairway from the basement. 2 tall candles sat on a table, their flickering flames casting shadows on the walls. But that wasn't what caught my attention. Someone was sitting in a rocking chair. The chair creaked gently as it swayed back and forth. I couldn't see the person's face, but their hand rested on the arm of the chair, pale and unmoving. A chill ran down my spine. I backed up, trying to ascend the stairs as quietly as possible, but each step betrayed me with creaks and cracks. When I was about halfway up, I glanced back down. The glow of the candles was gone. Someone had extinguished them. I didn't wait to find out what that meant. I bolted up the remaining steps, shut the basement door behind me, and made my way through the maze-like house, my flashlight darting wildly across the walls. I found the stairs to the second floor and called out to Carlos. "Carlos," I whispered loudly. No answer. I climbed the stairs, repeating his name, my voice growing louder and more desperate. At the top, I finally found him emerging from a dark room. "Are you serious?" he asked when I told him there was someone in the basement. "We need to leave." "Now," I said. Carlos didn't argue. We made our way back to the first floor, heading for the back door. As we passed the corridor with the basement door, we both froze. A silhouette stood in front of the door. I didn't wait to see who or what it was. "Just go," I yelled, and we sprinted out of the house, our footsteps pounding against the creaking floors. We didn't stop running until we reached my car. I fumbled with the keys, my hands shaking, and we peeled away from that street as fast as we could. During the drive home, I recounted everything I'd seen. Carlos listened in stunned silence, occasionally muttering, "Yo, what the..." Neither of us had an explanation for what or who I saw in that basement. A squatter? Maybe? Something else? I don't know, and I don't want to find out. All I know is that we never went back to that street, and I still get chills every time I think about that rocking chair and the hand resting on its arm. Some things are better left alone.